Daf Yomi, Tractate Bava, page 28b. For the first part, see part 2 of 28a, the first several lines. We're starting now with the lines, with the words, some lines down. Lefikach im hitiach tzilochiso be'evan chayiv. The Brisa continues, therefore, if one dropped his flask on a stone that was left in a public domain, breaking the flask, the owner of the stone is liable. The first clause of this brisa is difficult according to the opinion of Rav, since it compares the case of a stone, a knife, and a load to the case of pit, and it does not distinguish between a situation in which he renounced ownership of them or one where he did not. And the last clause of the brisa, which deems the owner of a stone in the public domain liable to pay restitution for the damage to the broken flask, is difficult according to the opinion of Shmuel. According to him, the owner should be liable only for causing injury and not for damaging vessels. The Gemara responds to this objection. According to your reasoning, the brisa itself should pose a difficulty for you, since the first clause states that one is exempt from liability for damage to vessels, and the last clause states that he is liable. Rather, Rav resolves the contradiction according to his line of reasoning, and Shmuel resolves it according to his line of reasoning. Rav resolves it according to his line of reasoning as follows. In what case is this statement said? Concerning what case does the brisa rule that a stone, a knife, or a load are analogous to pit, exempting their owner from liability for breakage to vessels caused by them? It is where he renounced ownership of them. But if he did not renounce ownership of them, he is liable. Therefore, if one dropped his flask on a stone belonging to another person in the public domain, the owner of the stone is liable to pay for the damage of the flask. And Shmuel resolves the contradiction according to his line of reasoning. Now that you said that the cases of one's stone, one's knife, and one's load are similar to one's pit, then according to Rabbi Yehuda, who deems one liable to pay for damage caused to vessels by falling into a pit that he dug, one is therefore liable in a case where someone dropped his flask on a stone belonging to him and the flask broke. Rabbi Elazar says they taught that the owner of the stone is liable only in a case where the pedestrian stumbled on the stone and the flask scraped against the stone and broke. But if he stumbled on the ground, not on the stone, and the flask consequently fell and scraped against the stone, causing the flask to break, the owner of the stone is exempt from liability for the damage. In accordance with whose opinion is this statement? Is it not in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Nassan, who maintains that if damage is caused by two people and one of them is exempt from paying compensation, the owner must pay the entire amount? Similarly, since there is no liability for damage caused by stumbling on the ground, compensation should be collected from the owner of the stone. There are those who say an alternative version of this discourse. Rabbi Elazar says, do not say that it is only in a case where the pedestrian stumbled on the stone and the flask scraped against the stone, causing the flask to break, that he is deemed liable, but that if he stumbled on the ground and the flask scraped against the stone, causing the flask to break, he is exempt. Rather, even if the pedestrian stumbled on the ground and the flask scraped against the stone, causing the flask to break, he is liable, in accordance with whose opinion is this statement. It is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Nassan. The Mishnah teaches that if someone's jug broke in the public domain and one slipped in the water from the jug and was injured from the fall, or if he was injured by the shards of the broken jug, the owner of the jug is liable. Rabbi Yehuda says in a case where the owner of the jug acted with intent, he is liable. In the case where he acted without intent, he is exempt. The Gemara asks, what are the circumstances in which it is considered that he acted with intent? Rabbah says, even where he just intends to lower the jug off his shoulder and accidentally breaks it, he is liable to pay for the damage he causes, according to Rabbi Yehuda. Abaye said to him, by inference, does Rabbi Meir, who is the anonymous first Tana of the Mishnah, the Tanakama of the Mishnah, deem him liable if the jug cracked by itself? Rabbah said to him, indeed, Rabbi Meir would deem him liable, even if he were holding the handle of the jug in his hand, the optimal manner for holding it. And the handle snapped, causing the jug to fall and break. An accident clearly beyond his control. The Gemara asks, why is this so? Isn't he the victim of circumstances beyond his control? And the merciful one exempts a victim of circumstances beyond his control from punishment, as it is written with regard to a betrothed young woman who is raped. But to the young woman you shall do nothing. Deuteronomy 22:26. And if you would say that this matter applies only with regard to exemption from the death penalty, but with regard to damages one is liable, even for circumstances beyond his control, but isn't it taught in a brisa, if one's jug broke, and he did not remove its shards, or if his camel fell, and he did not stand it up, Rabbi Meir deems him liable to pay for any damage they cause. And the rabbis say that